Hello and welcome to another little podcast from me, Mikey Campling. I haven't done one of these for a while. I just really wanted to record something today just to pay tribute to Sir Terry Pratchett, who we've just heard today has died from his Alzheimer's at the age of 66, which is very sad news to lots of people around the world, and that's a testament to the effect that he's had on people's lives through his wonderful books and his public speaking and TV and film and all kinds of ways. And in recent years, it's hard to know how much translates to the States and things, but certainly in this country, when he announced that he had his Alzheimer's many years ago, that was seen as very unusual. It was kind of brushed under the carpet quite a lot and often referred to as dementia, which is not strictly accurate, I don't believe. So he was very brave in coming forward and raised the profile of the disease and raised the profile of fundraising for research and so on. I believe he gave generous donations as well to that cause. And it really, I would say a lot of credit goes to him for making that a topic that making Alzheimer's now a topic that people will discuss more openly. And I think he led a lot of calls for improvements in care for people with Alzheimer's, and I think that was just very valuable in itself, just raising the level of that debate and awareness. Of course, huge effect on awareness, being a very public figure at that time. And he was also very open, very honest about it, and I think that was also a measure of the man as well. I think he was a very what you see is what you get type person, and I think that came across as very genuine, and I think that helped as well. He also raised the debate about assisted dying and whatever you think about that. I won't go into that now, but I think it was a debate that needed raising in a much more intelligent way than it had been in the past, and certainly that was something that Sir Terry was able to do. I thought I'd mention something. I always feel a bit dubious about people who seem to be cashing in on, some connection with a celebrity, however minor. So, I put in all my profiles that I've had lunch with Sir Terry Pratchett a couple of times, and that's true, albeit a long time ago. And that's not because I'm trying to cash in on it so much as it shows you what an effect that had on me. Meeting him, it was a great thing, and it seems like it was yesterday to me, although it must be more than 20 years ago, I'm sure. Which is, so I used to live in Cheltenham, and I think this video's jumping. So I used to live in Cheltenham here in the UK, and there's a big literature festival in Cheltenham, a really good one, still going on, and some friends of mine. Their families were involved in helping out at the festival, and in return for stewarding and so on around the events, they would get sort of first dibs on free tickets that were left over to events, and getting to meet authors and putting them up as well, having them round to their house for lunch, which was kind of nice for a visiting author far from home to go and have a nice family lunch rather than sort of be stuck in some grotty hotel on their own. I think that's how it works anyway. So I was lucky enough to go along. I was in my 20s then, and we'd recently discovered what a great laugh Terry Pratchett books were. And we used to, because there were quite a few of them even then, although, I say quite a few, there was probably 5 or 6, not now, there were 70. And we used to sort of pass them around, lend them to each other and enjoy the jokes. And we went along to one of his talks first, and it gives you an idea that he wasn't even in the main room. That's my memory. He was in one of the side halls, and I'm not sure if it was even full. Me and my friend sat at the back and had a good old laugh, which he gave a genuinely funny little talk. I remember him saying a line, I think it's been quoted since, that somebody asked him what he felt about this sort of Anne McCaffrey style of thing with fantasy, which was quite popular at the time, and he said something about the cute dragon that sits on your shoulder also craps all down your back, and got a good laugh from us in the audience. because he was then seen really as a fantasy writer. And I think that probably a lot of people now would realise that he was a unique phenomenon in himself, and that he was blending fiction and fantasy and satire and all kinds of things in a really uniquely imaginative way, and very effectively. He was entertaining people and challenging them whilst having good fun with them at the same time. So he did so much to open things up. But at the time, he was regarded as a fantasy author. And I think some of the audience, who were perhaps diehard fantasy geeks, were kind of thinking, who are these guys laughing their heads off at the back? And we were there because we just loved his sense of humour. And if we got a few sort of furrowed brows and very English way of, what are they laughing at about there, sort of thing. But it was great. And then we had lunch with him afterwards, and he was just as warm and generous and funny in person when he wasn't, on the stage reading or performing. He was. I remember the lady hosting the lunch, asked him if he ate meat, and he said he would eat anything he could keep down 2 times out of 3, which I think might be in one of his books somewhere. But he said it with a twinkle in his eye, and that was how he was. He had a twinkle in his eye, and he kept us entertained. I was rather in awe of him because I'd always wanted to write, but I thought, I can't say that, because if you're a writer, everywhere you go, people must say, oh, I want to write. I'm full of ideas, So I didn't say anything. I didn't even ask him to sign any of his books. I just thought, just interact with him as a person, just nicely. We'd listen to his stories. And he was very considerate and asked about, our jobs and what we did and things. And I was a computer programmer at the time. So Terry Pratchett told us about his difficulties of his first tour in America, I think it possibly was, where he'd had some awful hire car which kept breaking down, and difficulties they had with that. And he would just be spinning off ideas. In those days, you used to see this phenomenon of before they started locking supermarket trolleys together, you would see them abandoned all over the place. And I remember him sort of coming up with some idea about them being almost alive and sort of sneaking off on their own and gathering up in the woods, sort of thing. Just things like that just came spinning off him because he was a sparky guy. And back then, just dressed totally normally in sort of Marks and Spencer kind of, run-of-the-mill crimpling trousers sort of thing. He hadn't become that famous. A few years later, we did the same thing, and of course we were desperate to go along and meet him again, and we were lucky enough to make him lunch that day. And we had a nice lunch together, and again, very entertaining. But by then he'd gained a bit of fame, and at this point he was more in his public image role, so he was sort of dressed in black with a floppy hat on, which later became a trademark. So today I've made sure I've worn my hat in tribute to Sir Terry. So I think there's not much else that I want to say other than he wasn't just a great writer, but a great guy as well, and he did an awful lot. Certainly some of his books for younger readers, the Johnny and the Bomb and that sort of thing, and Only You Can Save Mankind, actually, and Truckers, Diggers' Wings, things like that, which when I was later in life, I was a primary school teacher, and I used to use those with classes, and you'd often find you get particularly some boys who maybe weren't so keen readers would be really keen to gobble up some of those Terry Pratchett books because they liked his wicked sense of humour, and I think that brought a lot of people into a really good reading habit. And because he wrote so much, he was so prolific, there was always something to go on to. So I think very much, like Roald Dahl, a really good influence on getting kids to read, perhaps to write as well, who knows. So I think I will sign off there. I will raise my mug of Earl Grey in tribute to Sir Terry Pratchett, and may he rest in peace, and thank you for all the things you've done for literature and for me, and you've enlivened a lot of people's lives, and it's very sad that he should have been taken too young and to been struck down by that dreadful disease. Perhaps if we want to take something from it, perhaps we could all go out and make some donations to charities that help to care for people with Alzheimer's and their families, because caring for someone with Alzheimer's is not an easy thing, and there's charities there that help support people. And let's keep that debate going. Let's make sure it isn't swept under the carpet or regarded wrongly as just a disease of the very elderly, because it can strike people with early onset Alzheimer's, like it did with Sir Terry. And perhaps we can fund research and go on and try and make a difference as some kind of small tribute to the man for all that he's done for us in entertaining us all these years. So here's to Sir Terry. And I will finish there. Thank you for listening and watching.